Hello, I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking at the Temenos Community Forum 2026 here in Copenhagen. And I'm joined by Paul Weiss, who is the Chief Transformation Officer at Regions Bank. And we're talking about that journey of core modernization. So Paul, welcome to our TCF 26 pop-up studio.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
I mentioned there just in the opening about core modernization, but really how do you measure it? What does success look like? What are the metrics and KPIs?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first you have to decide, why are you pursuing a transformation? Is this to get closer to your customer? Is it a product base? And once you understand that, what are the capabilities required to drive success? And then of course your KPIs will roll from there. At Regions, we're quite interested in being closer to our customers with innovative products and features. So we've defined that, and now what we measure is how quickly can we bring a new product and feature to market for that client would be an example.
And I suppose in a way that makes it slightly more tangible, but is there a right approach to modernization, particularly for a bank that's looking to modernize in a way that truly works for them?
Again, this is a very bank-specific, I think, type of issue. Some banks will need to take on a broader scope. For example, we are doing really a pretty comprehensive approach where all products, all clients that will then deliver in waves. Other banks will have very specific issues that they need to address, where they may put on a very specific product, or they may have a surround system capability that they need to upgrade. In that case, a more progressive approach may make sense. So I think it depends on the balance of risk and the type of benefits and the timeline that you have. Progressive modernization tends to be a less risky approach, but of course it takes longer to deliver in totality to your clients. So I think, to me, that's really the risk-reward trade-off that would drive comprehensive versus a more progressive or segmented approach.
Now, you've been on this journey. It's in your title, Chief Transformation Officer. So what would you say are your lessons learned that you can pass on to other banks? And then in a second phase to this question, everyone's talking about AI. Is it a real game changer when we look towards the future?
Oh, it's definitely a game changer, for sure. Lessons learned, I think, was very interesting to me when we started this journey. We were so focused on the core. And it turns out, which is right, but the Temenos core itself is quite flexible, and in many ways much more flexible than the surrounding systems and environments that we're putting it into. So we found that we really needed to have a great deal of focus on the entire solution, planning for some of the pieces that were a little harder to bolt into than Temenos was itself. So I would say start with a very clear understanding of your total environment solution from the very beginning. So that as you run into potentially constraints in your legacy environment, that doesn't throw you off track on your timeline. For AI, I'm a large proponent of it. I think it has, with regard to banking, two things. For core modernization, a huge amount of your time will be spent on data mapping, data migration, testing, and then integration. All three of those areas are highly automatable through AI. I would estimate that if we were to start over again and do it with the tools that are available now, it would probably take about a third out of the timeline and cost. So it will reduce the barrier to entry, particularly for people that are doing progressive modernization, quite substantially. I think it's something that will move people to starting to transform now rather than wait. And then the second aspect of AI is I think you'll see banks start to use AI to drive their core operating model much more so in the next 3 to 4 years. So one, I think it helps get a brand new core in, and two, the efficiency of how you leverage that core will go up dramatically through an AI-driven operating model.
Do you know, it's interesting because just listening to you in response, you're talking about a holistic view. Mm-hmm. And also perhaps your response has given comfort to those who have been watching and are now wanting to come on board with their own journey. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.